enough is enough.
Hey guys, welcome back to the No Holds Barred Network with another episode of Under the Ropes. I'm your host as always, the Queen of the Indies, Tiffany. I'm so excited. This has been a bucket list that anybody knows to get Archadia finally on the podcast. I'm so excited. Thank you for coming on. How are you?
Doing well. It frightens me a little bit how excited you are. Like I don't think. It's been 20 years of wrestling, and you're probably the most excited person to talk to me. So I'm kind of interested to see what this is going to be like.
Well, I'm already getting messages that I shouldn't be doing this interview from Steve Scott. He's writing me literally right now, and he's saying, "Don't do it. Gross. Like that's just pure."
He also texted me and said, "Put me over." So he just wants me to talk about him.
Oh. See, I see how you guys are. Like, you're just using me over here, you know. But Steve's been on the podcast as well. But anyway, so guys, if you're new here to the Under the Rope series, here I interview everything independent wrestling. So I have wrestlers, promoters, referees, anything independent wrestling. I got you covered. If you got questions for Arcadia, I'm sure he'll be more than happy to answer any of them. So with every podcast that I do, I like to go back to basics for the fans out there that may not know you. So I always love to start off with this question of how you got into professional wrestling.
So when I was 16 years old, a group of friends and I were heavily into backyard wrestling, and we'd put on shows and we'd sell tickets. We actually got shut down one time by the town because they told us we didn't have a permit to run shows. And there was a newspaper article written about it.
Wow.
But yeah, so we backyarded for multiple years, and then all of a sudden, like a lot of guys in this area, New Jersey, you convince a promoter that you're trained, very Joey Janela-esque, and you agree to sell a certain amount of tickets. And when you sell those tickets, you're allowed to be put onto the show, and that's what I did. And I guess we did well enough that we were welcomed back, and we kind of spent a few years with them and then started branching out once the experience got into play and started to really feel confident enough to be able to move on or move out of one local scene.
Wow. That's really awesome. It's so crazy. Like, I still hear that every once in a while, like about the selling of tickets, of getting people to come. And I've seen a lot. I've always seen like the sections with certain people. It's pretty interesting. I feel like sometimes I'll see like 50 people for that one section for somebody.
Well, especially this area, I feel like it's overpopulated, so you can use that to your advantage in promising a young kid a spot on a show. And it's not really the kid's fault. I don't think it was my fault being a kid that wanted to just wrestle. It's obviously not the correct way to get involved, but
right.
Promoters are going to maximize their profits as much as they can if they can convince a 16 or 17-year-old kid to sell a whole bunch of tickets to get on a show and live out their dream. I mean, the kid's obviously going to do it.
Right. Definitely. Totally understand. So another question, obviously, clearly, I know you. But I always like to ask the wrestlers to give their recommendations for a fan that's never seen you wrestle before. What is probably like the go-to match that after this podcast they should go turn in right now?
That is a loaded question because I think there's so many different versions of myself, and I think there's so many different ways I tried to portray myself in the ring, and I feel like probably the last couple years of my career and being able to really tell more story-based wrestling, because a guy my size, 180, 190 pounds, especially on the indies, you're going to be thrown into a lot of scramble matches. So it was hard to find a niche or at least get the opportunity to tell stories, singles, one-on-one matches. And I didn't get that opportunity until much later in my career. I think the match I had in 2017 with Jonathan Gresham in JAP, I think that is one I'm proud of, because I really consider Jonathan Gresham to be, if not the best in the world, at least top 5. And to be able to be in the ring with him and to be able to not look, and I know from a 20-year veteran, for someone to say that just being able to not look out of place is something that's kind of crazy. But when you're in the ring with those guys that are top level like that, it's pretty apparent that how much better they are than you. Yeah. And he's a world-class wrestler, and just to be able to be in that ring with him and learn from him was a fun experience. So I think that match is probably a good one to check out. I don't know where it's available. I just know that I have it because they sent it to me.
Right.
So I don't know where anyone else can watch it.
I mean, it's so crazy, right? Like, compared to how it is now to where it was, like 20, I could even say 30 years ago, because I mean, I'm up there. So, but I can say that I only knew wrestling from like WWF 30 years ago. Back then, I didn't really know about independent wrestling till like years ago. And now we have all this apps. We have YouTube. We have, we could go on IWTV. I mean, even a lot of the wrestling companies, they've been making networks themselves, like including UWAElite. So you have the network there as well. So like, how is it for you to watch this evolvement, that we've just evolved within wrestling?
Yeah, it's honestly quite crazy to have been around as long as I have, to be able to see the evolution of wrestling. When I first started kind of getting recognition in this area, Jersey All Pro was running their own show, which they had to host on their own website. I don't even know if YouTube was around back. I don't even think it was, because I know that they threw them on YouTube afterwards, like eventually when YouTube became more prominent. So I know they hosted them on their own website, so people had to go to japw.net to watch the show. And I've had conversations with people who did that. Right. Like Anthony Green pulled me aside at a show and said, "Hey man, I grew up watching you on JAP Worldwide," which is, something that at the time was the first of its kind. I know that in this area, there were a few groups that were doing like public access shows. So I know Phoenix Championship Wrestling, that was run by Nova from ECW's brother, Donnie B. And then you have Gino Caruso from ECPW is running his own thing, but it was only that specific area. You couldn't get it outside of his area. So back then, you really had to seek out wrestling to be able to watch it. You had to go to shows. You had to buy tapes off of the internet. It's crazy to see how accessible it is now. Yeah. And it almost feels like, as someone who has seen the transition go from not having any contact at all and not having people be able to watch your matches easily, to someone now who knows what they're watching, because people are uploading things every day. Right. I search my name in YouTube and I see a match against Dan Barry from 15, 16, 17, 18 years ago, and I'm like, where did this even come from? Like, now these guys that are starting now, or at least have been starting within the last 5 years, every match they've had has been available for someone to watch, and it's good and bad. I think I was able to experiment more than guys today are allowed to do. Mm-hmm. Because everything that I did wasn't under a microscope. So you see these guys that are training at H2O and with Tremont, and everything they've ever done has been able to be viewed by someone. Yeah. So there's no working out, stuff. There's no seeing how it works with the crowd and then using it on a bigger stage. It's kind of everything that you do is under a microscope.
Right. Oh man, all this love in the chat. I love you guys. You guys are so great. Let me give some love over here. Alex, he's saying hi. David Russell is like, hi, Tiffany, guest Arcadia. Good Cop, Bad Cop says, hey, Tiffany. Hey, Arcadia. Good timing. Always love to hear John Gresham talk. Brandon Walter goes, hey, Tiffany. Hope you're well. Arcadia, who's your least favorite opponent?
I was brought into the wrestling business at a time that kind of stuff wasn't really discussed. I don't think I had a least. I'm sorry, my son is throwing things around up there, but I don't think I have a least favorite opponent. Yeah. I think there are guys that you show up and you appreciate more but I don't think there's anyone you look at and you're just like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. JP Mayer, he's excited. He's putting caps. Archadia. David says, I've seen his career from the beginning to now. Ryan T's in the chat. Hi, Ryan T. He's writing in a lot of letters. Archadia. And then James is in chat. He goes, hashtag tri-state icons, which we'll get into. So actually, I mean, you've touched base so many different things. We could go all different places, and that's where I was going to go with this podcast, because there's a lot of promotions we can touch base on. So I'm going to start with JCW, and then we'll get into the tweets that we've seen. But we're going to just talk about this. JCW's got their comeback. We've seen so many amazing wrestlers. I think it's also a great start for a lot of fans too that maybe aren't familiar with independent wrestling. Like, this is really a great start because there's so many different types, and the young kids also that we see growing up. And I'm gonna go with Jordan Oliver is probably one that screams to me, and that's like one of my favorite matches that you've had at JCW with him. So can we talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go into we'll go into the questions that I got after. So we'll start with Jordan Oliver.
So what do you want to know about Jordan Oliver?
So no, I want to talk about your match, like everything, the build towards it, like again.
So Jordan and I have a very, I wouldn't call it historic because it's only been 5 or 6 years, but as long as he's been in the wrestling business, I've known about him. And I've followed pretty much everything he's done. He showed up one day at UWAElite when I was still there, and we hit it off. And personally, in my life outside of wrestling, I do a lot of work with trying to teach and coach and try to like help people come along. So anytime I see someone who has a desire to want to better themselves, I immediately am attracted to that area. And at the time it was Jordan and Casey Navarro who showed up and were trying to get in and trying to get time. So I immediately gravitated towards them and tried to work with them and tried to give them anything that I knew. I was trying to just, help them out. And then Jordan and Casey kind of blew up, rightfully so. They're both extremely talented, and I knew it was only a matter of time before that happened. And the match itself came about because selfishly, I just want to be in the ring with the best. And Jordan, personally and professionally, is someone that I admire. And I just wanted the opportunity to get in there with him. And when you get in the ring with someone like that and you get what you want, it kind of comes at you fast, and you don't realize, all right, well, maybe this wasn't a great decision. Because Jordan's very good, and he knows how to attack weaknesses, and he knows how to boost his own strengths, and he's at the top of his game, and it's only going to get better for him. I don't think that there's ever going to be a moment where he's not at the top version of himself, because I don't think he'll accept anything but the best of him.
Right. Nah, it's crazy even to like watch how much he's grown within even like a short period of time. I feel like it's just insane.
Well, because he's always studying and he's always trying to get better, and that's the thing, is that you notice the guys that are constantly evolving and trying to get better.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan used the pandemic as a way to put weight on and change his entire skill set.
Yeah. And
I can't think of one other person in the entire world of professional wrestling that decided to do that.
Yeah.
And he's just, he likes reinventing himself. He likes to do things that are outside of his comfort zone and outside of his own shell. And that's what makes him special. That's what makes him great. And anyone that's around him sees that.
You're right. Yeah, definitely. It's so great. I love all these kids that they're just so hungry. I feel like, I'll get to H2O later, because I can sit there and I can talk about the H2O kids like off the wall, but I still want to continue on to JCW. So, I mean, I want to talk about even like the last match with Azrael, which we'll get into as well with the tweets, because he sent a bunch of tweets or whatever. So you guys have history. Like, this isn't like something new. You guys go all the way back. You have two New Jersey legends here, but how it ended at the last JCW, like, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, that's who Azrael is and who he's always been.
Yeah.
And I know he's just kind of being him by like calling me when I'm not like, I'm just living my life, and I get phone calls off the hook from Azrael saying, we have to team up and we have to be best friends now. And it's exactly who he is. He completely delusional as to what his actions are and what they always have been. He called himself the good guy for 20 years and couldn't understand why people were booing him. It's just who he is. He's an extraordinary athlete. He takes pride in his physical shape and his ability to do things in the ring that other people can't do. But, the attitude is something that he's always had, where he's looked down on the people. And maybe that's good for him, how he operates in the ring, that the confidence he needs is that he needs to tell himself that he's better than everybody else and act it out, because that's just who he's always been.
Right. So, like, my next question was going to be, like, so is this going, obviously it's, like, not the end in the sense, because we're going to talk about Sunday, but, like, is this the end of you two? Like, is the feud going to continue? Like, is there possibility of another match between you two?
It's never going to end. As long as he is who he is, it's never going to end, because he just can't help himself. So whether or not we have to work past it, at this next show, it doesn't change. He is exactly who he's always going to be. So will it continue? I mean, but that's up to him. I just live my life and wrestle, and he's the one that does all these things. So you're going to have to ask him whether or not this will continue. He's as long as he's going to be him, it's going to continue.
So let's go into these questions, because I know he wants me to ask these on the podcast. So if the first tweet was, I have a question, why won't Archadia answer my phone calls?
I mean, if he wants to go to the JCW Wrestling YouTube page and watch the last show in which we competed against each other, then he should be able to answer his own question as to why I won't answer his phone calls.
And then his next question is, will he be ready for Sunday for JCW?
I've known him for 20 years, and I've never not been ready. So I don't know what is going on in that brain of his, but yes, of course I'm going to be ready.
And then his last one is he still upset about last time?
I'm not. It's not an upset or like what kind of question is that? Am I upset? Like, I'm not a 5-year-old throwing a tantrum. He put his feet on the rope and he cheated to win. Like, what am I supposed to do? I have to continue living the rest of my life.
Right. So it was funny because I saw his promo and he was saying that, I'm going to put it to the side for this weekend, bygones are bygones pretty much. So I guess the question is, what are we going to see?
His first promo that he released for our match last time is about how I've been a thorn in his side for 20 years. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've just wrestled for the last 20 years. You're the one that is constantly trying to tear other people down. Like, if you want to talk about thorn in sides, look in the mirror, pal.
All right, so I'm feeling he'll probably like in the chat, so we'll see if he comes back later or, comes back with any questions. But we're going to move on. I want to talk about Jersey All-Pro, and I want to talk about the significance of the lightweight heavyweight championship. Okay, so let's be real. I mean, people have held this belt like Kenny Omega, Jay Lethal, Liger, like, it's insanity. And you're the last one to hold this belt. So can we talk through you, like, what this meant for you? And, obviously, Jersey All Pro isn't around anymore. Like, give us a little bit about that.
I don't know if Steve Mack will end up watching this or listening to this, but I know he'll slap me if he hears me say this. But I kind of always felt like a phony in the locker room for Jersey All Pro, because you look around and you see these guys that have, just top of their game for as long as you can even think of, and to have your name even mentioned in the same conversation as Kenny Omega and Liger, Low Key and Homicide, and it's unreal to think of. But then, you also think about the fact that every time I went out there in a Jersey All Pro Wrestling ring, I gave everything I had, and I felt like I performed and I did well. And so there's always that conversation in my own mind going on whether or not, the glory of Jersey All Pro Wrestling is even something that I can even fathom that I was a part of. Knowing that the faces and names, I mean, I was in matches with guys that are the biggest superstars in wrestling and continue to be the biggest superstars in wrestling. And to think that I had that opportunity and I lived that section of my life is still kind of unreal.
Right. Oops. Let me click that back for you guys. Sorry, I had that clicked. I thought I clicked the what's it called, the layout back. So, it's just nuts. Like one night, me and my friend Melissa, we were going through the UWAElite, and we were going through old matches, and we went through JAPW. And it was just really funny because we found a match with you with KTB against Ortiz and Santana and Private Party. So it's funny, it's like you bring up like all these names, like now a bunch of people are in AEW, and it's nuts. And it's like, I wish, like, and thank God like that you could go back, because a lot of these shows are on IWTV, so it's so nice. And I was like, damn, I was like, I need to like go all the way back. I was like, and start from like the beginning, I feel like, with JPW.
Well, I think my start in JAP was 04, 05 in that time frame. I think maybe even late 03, maybe early 05. I don't know, but that's 16, 17 years ago. But
yeah, I was just it's really.
I watched the 7th anniversary show. I watched from the crowd. The main event was Jay Lethal versus Azrael in a ladder match. And then the next show, I worked a dark match against Eric Corvus, who at the time was Corvus Fear. I don't remember if he was doing like a hip hop gimmick at the time, but he had just finished a tag team called H2O. It was him and another fella, and they. But that just dates back, like all those guys are still around. That's the 7th anniversary show, and now it would be, I mean, what? Who knows? The 25th, like,
yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah.
And most of those guys are still around, still doing it. Like it's Azrael, it's Jay Lethal, it's Steve Mack, it's Homicide, it's Low Key. Like all those guys are still around, and that's what JAP was. It's like it's top tier stuff, but not only is it top tier stuff, it's guys that have staying power and that can stay relevant for 20 years and still be on the top of their game 20 years later. Like JAP was unbelievable.
Yeah. Definitely like check out it on IWTV if you guys haven't seen. Like I was having a field day that day. I was like, oh man, I was like, look at all these matches. I was like, this is just nuts. So I want to talk about this because I thought this was like a really cool thing. I was there live to watch you and Joe Gacy, and Joe Gacy pretty much handpicked you to come, wrestle like his last independent, for the independent scene before he got signed with WWE. So like, what did that mean for you, and for you to see like another colleague move on, to work somewhere to be signed?
Well, I've gotten kind of used to it that the guys around me are, and let me start by saying there is no one that I know that has gotten signed and didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely one person that has not gotten signed and definitely needs to be, or it's like the biggest crime against humanity ever is that KTB is not signed somewhere, because the dude is unbelievable. Yeah. And he always, going back to our conversation about Jordan, is that's a guy that constantly reinvents himself and is never settling to be like, oh, I'm going to do the same stuff over and over again. He's constantly reinventing his offense and his defense and his mindset. So let me just start by saying that, because if I didn't get that out, I wouldn't feel like I did this interview justice, because KTB needs to be somewhere that the entire world sees him.
Right.
So let me just say that first. But the Joe Gacy thing, I don't even remember how it came about. I remember being contacted by the promoter and saying that Joe Gacy wanted to wrestle me, and that was one of the ways that he would come back and wrestle for that promotion. So I don't know. It's one of those things that maybe it's even too big to comprehend, to realize that people do look at me with respect, or at least enough respect that they would want to get into the ring with me as one of their like last things to do before they move on. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could put into words the level of humbleness it feels like to have someone to that level, ask for you.
Yeah. Did you ever think, like, if roles were reversed? I know I remember I asked Tony Deppen once. I was like, if you got signed somewhere, did you ever think, like, who would you want to be your last match in the independent scene? Like, do you have a thought? Like, if you're like, okay, I'm getting signed tomorrow, like, who would be that person that you would square up with for the last time in the indies?
That's a very, very, very good question. And I've always been odd in that, like, I pick my opponents randomly. Like, it's not based on star power or it's not based on, the name recognition. I just like being in there with people that I know that I can flow with and that it would be fun to be in the ring with. And Ellis Taylor is definitely a name that I would throw out there because every time I've been around him, he's kind of been wanting to up his game, and all those guys from Young, Dumb, and Broker are always getting better and always reinventing the things that they feel about wrestling. Every time you talk to them, I mean, I know as someone who picks and chooses their appearances, it's easy for me to say that every time I meet someone, they're kind of changing it up because it's probably been like 3 or 4 months since I've seen them. Yeah. But a guy like Ellis Taylor, Charlie Tiger, Griffin McCoy, those guys are always kind of doing new stuff and new fun stuff. And just speaking JCW locker room alone, I think that being in the ring with Everett Connors would be a lot of fun. He seems to really be unique. And I like that about him, is that he's a very unique person, and he's not willing to change who he is or what he wants to do just to get booked, I think. And that's what makes him special. And I think that would be fun as well.
Oh, it's just funny because it's like you brought up all the Young, Dumb, and Broke guys, and I had all 3 of them on recently. I've had Charlie Tiger on, had Ellis on, and
I know you tagged me in the
yes. So that was gonna be my next question, because you never know what happens on these interviews, and people bring things up, and magically, and I can't say, like, I appreciate it so much that sometimes matches wind up happening from me talking to whoever I'm doing the interviews with. But Ellis, well, let me go back. Let me go back and quote what he said, because he said that you're the weirdest person, and then he said that he wanted to wrestle you because we were just talking about weird things because Charlie likes to eat cold noodles and stuff. But he had said
for Ellis Taylor to call me the weirdest person on the indies, meanwhile he spends so much time with Charlie Tiger, is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life, because Charlie Tiger is 100% the weirdest person, not only in wrestling, but to ever exist.
So it was really funny, like, how that, like, came about. I'm like, wait, what? I was like, this is
no, Ellis calls me weird because and I know this is going to sound weird, because I take pictures of him in the locker room, and it's funny. But it's funny. It's funny. Like, I'm just having fun. And he just, I don't know, maybe he was so in the zone with, like, preparing for his match.
Yeah.
That when I just, like, snuck up on him and was just, like, snapping photos, he was like, what are you doing, bro? Like, you gotta get ready for a match.
But I don't know, maybe it will happen, like,
Oh, it's definitely gonna happen. If I have to wheel myself out at 70 years old to wrestle Ellis Taylor, I'll probably do it.
Awesome. The Zane in the chat, Charles Mason, is another one that.
Yeah. Oh, well, before he went all crazy pants, I really liked the stuff that he was doing in the ring. And oddly enough, Brandon Kirk is someone that I haven't ever wrestled one-on-one besides in UWAElite probably 8 years ago, before he became, like, this version of Brandon Kirk with his blonde hair and his white pants. So I'd probably like the opportunity to do that as well.
Yeah, I've seen you guys also in scrambles before, you and Brandon Kirk.
Well, we did, I think, Best of the Light Heavyweights. We were both in together, and I think that might be it.
No, there was another one. There was one with Anthony Gangone, Jordan Oliver.
Yeah, that's the best of the light heavyweights.
Oh, was it that one?
Yeah, it was.
Okay, that's right.
Oliver, it was Oliver, Gangone, Kirk, Ace Austin, and Homicide.
There we go. I was there for that one too. So I was.
Listen, when you wrestle once every 4 months, you remember these things.
Yeah, I give you guys props. I don't know, like especially that you guys like wrestle so much, and like I always think of like, do you guys forget? Like, can you like pinpoint it?
I've definitely forgotten some things that I've done, but if I have wrestled someone, I know that I've wrestled them. I don't remember little intricacies about like what we did or stuff like that. But if I have wrestled you, I would know that.
Yeah.
Like I know, and I guess I don't want to say names because it'll be like pooping on somebody, but
yeah,
I'm just like there are names that I could throw out from early on in my career that people are like, what does that mean? That's a person?
Yeah, I love it too. Also, is like that everybody kind of supports each other too with like merch and like even like when I finally got to meet you in person, that you were wearing a Brandon Kirk shirt. And I love Brandon Kirk and Casey. I mean, they're great people.
Casey's all right, but Brandon, I mean, the only reason why I even talked to Brandon is because we're from the same town. We grew up in the same town. We know the same people. He's a terrible human being, and I don't know what Casey is doing, but you know, the only reason why I'm just kidding. I like that.
Damn. Okay.
I was trying to get a reaction out of you.
The salt, rub it into the wound, pretty much. So.
Yeah, you're like, wait, what?
Wait a minute. Let me get Casey on the line right now. So it was funny also when I was looking up on the UWAElite network and stuff, we were just like searching like old matches, and we were looking up Drake Chambers, who is amazing, and I need to see more of him. Like I'd love to see him at other promotions, but I found a match with you guys from like 2012 in a cage. So let's talk about the significance of the cage match. It's like you guys are like babies, like in the ring, and like where you are now, it's not.
Well, he was a baby. I was already 28 years old, so it's not. I wasn't a baby. He was like, I think he was like 19.
Wow.
He's really young. So he started kind of similar, and I don't want to tell tales out of school here, but because I don't want to like tell his story.
Right.
But he started very similar to the way that I did, in that, you know, and Drake Chambers is like, if you talk about Drake Chambers to people who used to watch like old backyard wrestling stuff, Drake Chambers is like God to them, because he was. And in my opinion, is the best kept secret in the entire world of professional wrestling. Because if he ever really put his mind to trying to make a name for himself in wrestling, he would no doubt be able to do that. And I've always been his number one fan and number one supporter. And it was pretty obvious the first time I met him and saw him wrestle. And that's a thing that you could probably judge. If you see me wrestle people over the course of a long period of time, like if you'll see me have a match with them in 2008 or 2009 and then 2016 and then 2021, you could probably understand how I feel about them and their talent.
Right.
Because I am constantly searching out opponents that I think my style matches with and that I think are amazing in the ring. And Drake Chambers is definitely one of those guys.
Yeah, so good.
He's unbelievable, and if people haven't seen him work, or like I remember I wrestled Tony Deppen for On Point Wrestling, and the match that I watched to prepare myself to wrestle Tony Deppen was a Drake Chambers versus Tony Deppen match, because I knew that if Drake had wrestled him a certain way, then I would be able to do the same thing. I like to model what I do based on what I've seen people do in the past. I'm a big student of not just the game in general, but student of people and being able to know what to expect from them. Mm-hmm. And Drake is one of those guys that I will watch him wrestle other people to see how good they are. Because if you can hang with him, or if you can put on a good performance with him, then you're someone that I think I can rock with.
Definitely. Melissa said, should have seen Tiff's.
I love him.
Melissa said, should have seen Tiff's face the first time I showed her Jake Chambers matches. Yeah, I was like in awe. Like, that's all you got to do is like a lot of people know like the stuff that I like, and I was like, who is this? I was like, I need to see more.
You're gonna find if you did, because obviously we're talking about it.
Yeah.
If you went back into my career and you were just like, oh, who have the people that he's wrestled with and stuff like that, you're gonna find guys that are great human beings.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the big thing about Drake Chambers is that he's a world-class wrestler, but he's a better person.
Yeah.
And I constantly am text messaging him just to stay relevant in his life, because I just want to know what is going on, because he's such a great person.
Yeah. Brandon Kirk's in the chat. He goes, "That's my friend." He said bad stuff about you.
No,
I'm only teasing.
That's my Kirky.
Yes.
Have you ever heard "Hey There, Delilah"?
Yes.
Is that the one that goes, hey,
Yeah.
That one, right? So there is a version of that not many people know, and it's a song that Brandon Kirk sings from time to time, and it goes a little something like this. Oh, you're Brandon Kirk to me. Oh, you're Brandon Kirk to me. Hold on. Brandon Kirk to me.
I love it.
And if I could convince him to allow me to sing him to the ring one time.
What do you think, Brandon?
I would love that.
And then we'll have like MLJ, announce the match too, because I feel like that's like the new thing now, that MLJ has to announce Brandon Kirk all the time. So
never heard of him.
And if you guys should check out that interview, he's coming on this Thursday. We can chat with him.
The softest professional wrestling t-shirt of all time is MLJ's t-shirt. It's so comfortable to wear.
Okay. We're gonna ask him about that this week. So
if that's an endorsement on wrestler merch.
Wrestling merch.
Buy an MLJ t-shirt, not because of MLJ's face being on it, but because it's very comfortable.
Ooh. They definitely have to be about the song. Like, I have a complaint. I need more tank tops, like women tank tops, not the unisex tank tops. I want women's tank tops. Like, I hate men's t-shirts. Like, I've become boxy.
But you need to understand that you are a rarity in the world.
I know.
And that it's usually grown men that are buying merchandise. You are probably a very rare find in the professional wrestling world.
That's right. I tell everybody I'll buy pins instead. So, if you got a pin, come at me. Matt Vertigo gave us some fan tweets. His first one is, who is who? So I need to know the explanation of this question.
So anyone that has ever seen me and Matt Vertigo stand next to each other would know that it is very, very difficult to tell who is who. So we wanted to be a tag team, and you would have to figure out who is who, because you can't tell the difference between the two of us.
It's so great. His second question goes, when are you going to challenge me for the strap I'm here with?
So I can only assume that he is referring to his territory championship.
Yes.
I think you'd have to be more of an active wrestler to challenge for that. I don't know if a temporary part-timer such as myself would be able to challenge such a great champion.
Okay.
Like Matt Vertigo. And it would probably break my heart to take that thing from him, so I'd probably stay away from it.
Oh, okay. All right, so I want to talk about this because I have a clip here. I'm going to post it because it's my camera. Obviously, because like I'm always everywhere. I love to take footage. I love to clip stuff at a bunch of promotions, JCW, and of course, your last match at JCW. But I want to talk about, and I'm sorry, I apologize because like I'm bad with like names of moves. But I want to talk about your pop-up jump to like the scissor cut, like I like to call, which is
scissor
just
cut.
Yeah, it's just like I like to call it scissor cut. It's just funny. Like I always say it is the scissor cut. That's what I like to refer it as.
Okay.
But I love this move, and you know, when you saw me at the last show, I was saying to my friend, he's like, I don't know who Archadia is, and I'm like, wait till you see this one move. I said, I love this move, and then his jaw dropped, I tell you, and he was like, this is just insanity. So like, how did you, and I'm sure like you can see it on your screen because like I pulled up the clip and I've tagged you in it pretty much a lot of the times when I've seen you use it.
The one where I jump on the guy's back and then drop a leg. Oh, here it comes.
Yeah. So
that the name of the move is called "That's a Sweet Move."
Yeah.
That's the name of it. Okay,
that's a sweet. I love it. It definitely is. Like, how did you come up with that? How did you come up with the name? Like, where did?
So I started my wrestling career started in the Empire Wrestling Alliance, based out of Jackson, New Jersey, at the time, and there was a wrestler that went by the name Hyena.
Yeah.
He used to do a famouser, very similar to that. It's like Billy Gunn's move is the famouser. He used to do a version of that where he would jump off the second rope and then jump backwards onto the guy. Mm-hmm. And when I left Empire Wrestling Alliance and when I left EWA, I wanted to always kind of remember where I came from and shout out the guys that I love and are my friends. So I kind of always liked to add something into my moveset that is kind of a shout out to my friends. So whenever I do that move, it's a very personal shout out to him, because he did a version of it, and I just kind of, through watching other people wrestle and kind of trying to come up with something creative, put my own spin on it and did it that way. And then that's my shout out to him.
Oh wow, that's so cool. Like, yeah, that was like always like the one thing that I pop, you know, and I'm like, oh, I love this move. I was like, and I think Melissa, you're in the chat. I think you said that you love his drop kicks. It's just funny how like certain people, just certain things always stick out of certain moves. Like I love bridges on toes. I mean, I'm always gonna shout out Anthony Gangone because he's definitely one of my favorites. That Yuta's another one that does these crazy bridges.
Well, you could probably shout out Anthony Gangone for different reasons.
Oh yeah,
other than just his bridges, because he's just an amazing performer. I don't think I've ever met anyone as dedicated to the craft of professional wrestling as I have with Anthony Gangone.
Yeah. He's great. He's talked about you too on the pod. Like, Gangone's very important to me when it comes to podcasting world. He was my first interview. I think he came back on the 20th interview, and then I had to have him come back on the 100th episode because I feel like he started the journey with me in the independent scene with interviews, and that 100 was very big. I had to come back. He's definitely talked about you on the pod. He's definitely one of my favorite wrestlers as well. Everybody knows that. Amazing. Like, I'd love to see you guys. I mean, you guys been in the ring before. I'd love to see that in person, like a one-on-one.
We did a 3-match series in ACE, American Championship Entertainment. I don't know if you're familiar. They used to be up in Wallington, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of people there when we did it, but the story of our feud at the time was definitely one of the best things that I've done. While it definitely hurt a lot, I'm proud of how it came out.
I'm definitely gonna go back and check those matches out. So let's talk H2O. H2O is very important to the No Holds Barred Network here. Very important to me. I love those kids to death. I've had a whole bunch of them on. I'm continuing going through the students on this podcast. And I've talked, and you've come up a lot. We've talked about how a bunch of trainers come in. Brandon Kirk's one of the trainers on Tuesdays. I've actually been down there, watch Brandon Kirk help with the students on Tuesdays. And you've been down there, and we talked about even like when you came down with Jay Lethal and like that. Apparently, from what I was told, that Matt didn't even know that you were coming down there with them. So, I mean, they all appreciate you. Like, you know, like I hear these stories. I talk to a lot of these kids. But let's talk about H2O and the training over there. And I mean, it's nuts. Like they've been branching out a little bit too. So again, we see some at JCW as well.
Yeah, so I think H2O is definitely the premier school right now in this area, at least pumping out talent and guys that can go. And I think that's a credit to not only the students that are there working their ass off every single time that they're in the ring, but it's also a benefit to have guys that are as dedicated and as talented as Brandon Kirk and Mike Quest and Matt Tremont and Preacher that were down there working with these guys from the start. I think there's nothing you can say bad about anything that comes out of that H2O school. Those guys haven't missed yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's nuts. And I tell them all, it was like the nice thing I also find, and I don't know, maybe I'm a little biased or whatever, but what I kind of notice is each kid is very different. They're very different. Like a lot of schools you see, like you can definitely see who the trainer is, like all their move sets are kind of all in a way like the same. You just see that trainer. And, I'm not pointing at any particular school, but I've noticed that with a lot of schools. Where H2O, like, you have a bunch of mix. You have high flying, you have your mat wrestling, like your technical wrestling and stuff. And each one flourishes into something different, I feel like. And I think that's also one of the things that kind of has pulled me over to H2O and these students. It's nuts. Like...
Yeah, I definitely think that that's true. And it's even more apparent now that you say it, like that they all have their own separate identity. Yeah. And yeah, it's definitely possible that you see guys and like you said, you don't want to mention any names of people the way they run things, but there was a school when I first started in my area that I live in that was very similar in that, like, everyone that came from that school, you knew that that's where they came from, right, based on how they wrestled. Yeah. And the H2O guys are so different. Yeah. They're all so unique and they're all so hardworking. Yeah. Like, they're all receptive to everything you say. Like, in the grand scheme of the wrestling world, I am an absolute nobody. And for me to walk into that room and for them to respect me to the level like that I was some guy that could be telling them things that they should listen to was absurd. Like, and maybe it's because I had Jay Lethal with me, but maybe it's just a respect thing that is taught to them. Yeah. That they're all respectful people. Yeah,
no, they definitely are. It's such a great aura over there, and love out
because it's based on positivity. Yeah. And that's something that's been missing. Like, I mean, it's not just a worldview that it's starting to change into more of a positive outlook on helping people, especially people that are trying to get to a next level of something. But the wrestling world was never like that. It was always like, oh, survival of the fittest. And if you can't hang, you can't hang. And you better speed up and be one of us, or else you'll just get left behind. And I feel like that's the major difference between H2O, is that it's not about like separating the men from the boys, or right, it's not about like, trying to be a certain level of toxic wrestlinity. It's be who you are, mm-hmm, and we're going to make you be the best version of you, who you are. And we're going to bring you with us, instead of kind of like, hey, if you can't keep up, you're going to fall to the wayside.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nuts. I love seeing them over there. And
I want to wrestle all of them. Yeah. Like I've been asking Jeff Cannonball to get me in there and to let me wrestle some of these younger guys, and he has yet to deliver.
All right. Well, I guess I'm gonna go put my foot down over there, because I think I got a little leeway in there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I definitely made it known that there are a few guys that are currently students there, or at least trained there, that I would love to be in the ring with, whether it be one-on-one or three-way or four of us. I don't care. Yeah. I just feel like I can definitely make some good stuff with some of those guys.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. It'd be very, very interesting. I'm like, I said, if this happens, I'm coming down, because I know like some of those matches, and like I said, with a lot of the kids coming on this podcast, we talk about it, who they want to wrestle, and we've already had like some stuff brought up here on the podcast, and like, Ryan Redfield, I know you're listening. So he's one that we talked about, him and Calvin Tankman, and that match happened. And then we had talked about Ricky Shane Page, that just happened. So You know, never
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I don't want to single anyone out, Austin Luke, but I would definitely want to get into the ring with one or two or maybe even Reed Walker. I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't want to mention any names because I feel like that would be disrespectful.
Okay. So I had an anonymous fan tweet. They want you to talk about your match in 2015 at UWAElite with Sunny Kiss. So I feel like I'm like rewatching this a couple of weeks ago. I was laughing because I feel like there was a lot of mind games going in, a lot of dancing going along. Like I love Sunny Kiss to death. Like,
well, I think I may have misspoke before when I said that Drake Chambers was the best kept secret in the professional wrestling world, because I think my dance moves are probably the best kept secret in the professional wrestling world. And if you want to get a good glimpse of what it looks like when I'm invited to someone's wedding, you can check out that match that I had against Sunny Kiss, because I'm cutting the rug and I do it very fancily, if fancily is a word.
It was so good.
Sunny Kiss is again, you can see who I want to be in the ring with. Yeah. It's unique. They're fantastic. I mean, I can't say, and I tweeted out and I sent it in a text message to Sunny Kiss like 2 weeks ago and said, "Do you remember when I said this about you?" And I said, "Make sure that you remember that you saw Sunny Kiss at the beginning of their career, because you're going to be bragging about knowing them very soon." And that was like 6 years ago, five or 6 years ago that I sent that tweet out.
So good. He's so good. Like I've seen so many great matches and such a wonderful person too, which is
and it's all based on confidence. Once Sunny Kiss decided to believe that I could do anything in the entire world that I put my mind to, it blew up. And that's the thing with a lot of people, is that what holds them back is the confidence and that belief in themselves that what they want to do is okay. Like, go out there and just do it. Like, it's your art. Go out and be who you want to be.
Right. Melissa had a question for you. She said,
Melissa.
She says Azalea says hi too, by the way. She said, would you consider yourself to be a heel or a face?
I don't know. I'm just me. I'm me. And if the crowd wants to cheer me because I'm an old man who's trying to keep up with younger guys, then cheer for me. If they want to boo me because I talk some smack and I'm sarcastic sometimes, I don't know. Whatever your view of me is, that's what it can be. I don't think I can honestly say I'm one way or the other. I just feel like I perform the way I feel like I should be performing, and however you want to receive your Archadia, you can receive it.
Okay. Good Cop, Bad Cop says, fancily is indeed a word, means in a fancy manner. Well, thank you. So, what about this? Would you prefer to be a heel, or would you prefer to be a face? Like, what's easier?
I don't know. I think the situation calls for different things. Sometimes I'm in the mood to badmouth people and not listen to the crowd, and sometimes I need it. So I don't think there's a preference. I honestly just prefer to be true to what I want to be in that moment, and then let the chips fall wherever they do with the crowd.
Awesome. So I have two final questions for you, and if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. So what are some things you like to do when you're not in the squared circle?
So I have a 2-year-old son, and I really enjoy being around him, and I enjoy being around my wife and my family and spending time with them. That's always fun. I haven't had time to really do much else besides work, and be with my family in the last year and a half, 2 years, just like everyone else, because we've kind of been restricted on where we've been able to go and what we've been able to do. But I think most of my time is spent, with the people that mean the most to me.
Okay. So I like to end off every podcast with this, and especially, you know, since you've been wrestling a long time, I feel like, and I'm very interested what you're going to say with this, and we have a lot of fans that listen in that either want to get involved in wrestling, you know, or started training recently. But for those, you know, inspired and amateur wrestlers out there, what's a piece of advice that you would give them?
I think the most important thing that you could ever do in professional wrestling is to trust yourself. I feel like a lot of guys, when they're first starting out, are made to think that wrestling is a one-size-fits-all, and that you need to fit a specific mold of art form. And I don't think that it's like that, or ever should have been like that. And I think that people have a very short-term memory when it comes to the amount of things that have gone on in a professional wrestling ring. So if there's anything that anyone should ever know about wrestling, is that whatever you want wrestling to be, whatever art you want to put out there in the world, just do that. And don't worry about what the fans are going to think, and don't worry about what the other guys, especially the older guys, are going to think, because wrestling is always evolving and always changing, and it's always going new places that it's never gone before. And it takes people that don't look at it as hey, I need to do this because this is what wrestling is in this box right here. It takes people that are outside of that box, that believe in themselves and believe in their vision, to really move professional wrestling forward. So the best advice I could ever give is trust your vision of what you think you want your version of wrestling to be.
It's great advice. Good cop, bad cop. Really, he's got a question. He loves to mess with everybody that comes into my podcast with anagram questions. So he goes, would Archadia be an anagram of acrid? What venue have you entered that had the most unpleasant smell? Oh my God. Where do you come up with the
venue?
What kind of question is that?
I think it's a good question. I think it's fair. I think that there's a lot of venues that could be on the top of the list, and I'm trying to think right now back to certain venues that I've wrestled in. I know that I wrestled a street fair in Brooklyn once, and we got changed in like this muggy old mildewy basement, and it was early on in my career, and I remember sitting next to Steve Mack, and we kind of just started talking and started hanging out, and I remember it being a moment where Steve Mack went out of his way. See, this is the kind of question that you asked, what is the worst smelling locker room, and it's going to bring me back to memories of Steve Mack being super nice to me, and he didn't have to be, because that's just who Steve Mack has always been. Steve Mack is the type of guy that would tell you how good you are and how stupid you are for not believing how good you are, even when you don't believe it yourself. And I remember being in a muggy, disgusting basement, getting ready for a show that I wrestled, I think, Grim Reaper and Bandito Jr. on, and Steve Mack telling me that I need to believe in myself more.
Steve Mack's great. I mean, you guys should check out that interview if you haven't. He's been on the No Holds Barred network. Like, I gotta have him come back. He's got great stories.
Steve Monster Mack has the best stories.
Yes. He was a fun interview. I gotta get him back on. I love when people come back and bring back a whole bunch of new stories for this podcast. But he is truly something special. I love him. I think I just talked to him like a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about like Halloween and stuff like that. So I'll get him on the podcast.
He's the most personable guy. You can talk to him about anything.
Yeah, he's great. Good cop, bad cop said, I don't know why I left this late this week. Well, thank you. You made it in on time with your fan tweet questions, and I think I got all the fan tweets. So, so again, we have JCW coming up this Sunday, guys. Definitely, this is gonna be nuts. Series of Survival. So
I have no idea what to expect from it. I just know that I'm on a team with two of the biggest rivals I've ever had in my career. I think that out of everyone I've wrestled in my entire career, that Grim Reaper and Azrael are the most. So I've been in the ring against both of them over 40 or 50 times. And they are number 1 and 2 on the list of guys that I've wrestled against. And I think I was in a team with Reefer once in NWA cyberspace. I was in a 4-team TLC match against the SAT. All Money is Legal. And 3-way tag. And it was supposed to be me and the Amazing Red. We were a team, and then he got hurt, so Reefer came back, and Reefer ended up throwing me through a table at the end of that match. So that's the only time we ever were supposed to work together, and he ended up throwing me through a table. So I can only imagine what's going to happen this Sunday.
Definitely be interesting. But I'll be there. I'll be screaming for you. So definitely, if you guys didn't get tickets for that. It's going to be on YouTube, on the GCW YouTube page. So definitely check that out. JCW is definitely worth the watch. And you got UWAElite, another home for you. So that's coming up November 20th. So in a couple of weeks. I know Melissa will be there. I will not be there. I'll be at H2O. So I'm sorry. But Melissa promised to send me lots of video and pictures. But you're wrestling Eddie Thomas.
Yeah, so Eddie Thomas is another one of those original JAP guys. He trained in Jersey All Pro Wrestling under Magic, and he's been around longer than anyone really understands. He was a former Jersey All Pro Wrestling TV champion, and he was, trained by the best, and he's been around for a long time. And I think he's kind of decided that he has taken it upon himself to teach young guys lessons, but in that old school negative way. And I think it's only my duty to make sure that he gets taught a lesson as well. So I think that's where this match came from.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. Is there anything else coming up that I didn't grab?
I don't think so. I do believe, I don't know if I'm allowed to say if I have anything coming up in the future.
Well, don't get in trouble. I don't want to on that.
Yeah, I don't know if
that's fine. We pushed those 2 shows, so.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I show up where I can feel welcomed, and JCW has given me the opportunity to come back and honestly, for someone who has been as part-time as I have been, to just have the ability to work in an environment like JCW has created is unbelievable. Because I was there in 2001 when JCW was at its largest. Steve Mack was there, and I remember watching Steve Mack wrestle the Legion of Doom in South River, New Jersey in 2000. And I was on that show. I wrestled in like a 6-man tag of random people who probably don't even exist anymore. And then I was in JCW again when they ran Six Flags, and they came back, and then they changed into GCW. I was there for a couple months, and then, so I've been around JCW for close to 20 years or more than 20 years. And it's just an absolute honor to be welcomed back and to have the ability again to be in there with the guys that I've been in there with.
It's so great. Melissa also said, Corvus put Eddie Thomas in his place. Now it's Arcadia's turn. So.
It's fun, right?
Yeah.
I'm excited to be, because the last time I was in a UWAElite ring is I stepped in for an injured Mike Seaway and took the tag titles away from Eddie Thomas and his brother Miles. So it seems like he might have a short-term memory and realize that it's not great for him when he gets into the ring with me.
Oof. Definitely check out these promotion guys. I love it. I love introducing people that aren't familiar. Even me. It's like impossible to keep up. I live with this Queen of the Indies nickname, but I'm always constantly learning about all the promotions that are out there. New wrestlers to me. It's nuts. But tell everybody where they could find you, follow you, buy some merch, all that fun stuff.
You can find me on a future H2O show wrestling one of the students, whether it be Reed or Austin, I don't care, one of them. And you can also find me, honestly, it doesn't matter where else. That's the one place I hope you find me.
All his links are in the description below. But Arcadia, I can't thank you enough for coming on here and chatting with me. I really appreciate that you did that.
Well, listen, you are keeping my name alive 21 years later, and I don't think I can ever express to you how appreciative I am that you even asked me to be a part of this.
It's so great. I'm glad that I got to learn a little bit more about you, and like I said, even like me going back and looking at old matches, I love doing that. And even me and Melissa, we Zoom. We watch a lot of matches together, just in general, of like Drake Chambers. We were looking up like one day, so it's always fun, and it's all great to support independent wrestling. Oh wait, we just got a last tweet here. Monster Mac, love me some Archadia. One of the best humans I know. So I love it. And I'm sure a lot of people that are listening to these interviews, like, it's great. All the names that are brought up are mostly people that you've seen on this podcast. So, and if there's more people that you guys want me to interview, please let me know in the comments as well. So, but yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. So stay safe, support independent wrestling, and we will talk to you guys soon. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.